Hello again. This is Renz Gonzales, head of business development at PropellerAds. You probably know my name already, but if you don't, I work for Propeller. I work for I work for one of the biggest ad networks in the industry. And today we are joined by two powerhouse, and I say powerhouse because these are two rock stars in the industry. Of course, I'm talking about Rohit MC, who is our partnership manager in India. Hi, Rohit.
Hello, Renz.
Let's be a bit more casual. I mean, I like, in a sense, I've met you today because you came all the way from India, from Bangalore, from our office there. And it's been such a great pleasure working with you. But we'll talk more about, yourself later on. And I want to go and proceed with presenting and introducing our very special guest for today, who is none other than Gaurav Mehta. Hello, Gaurav.
Hey Renz, namaste.
Namaste, namaste. So basically, just to get that out of the way, because we all got to be very casual here. Gaurav is a very, very, very good friend of ours here at Propeller, not just in terms of the company itself, and he's provided us with insights throughout the years. We've met him at conferences in India, and not just in India. I think we also met in Barcelona, if I'm not mistaken.
I've met you in Barcelona, but I've met a couple of people in Bangkok as well.
Right, right, right. That's awesome. And again, please, for all the audience out there, the listeners, and this will be on YouTube, by the way, as well. So you guys look good. For all our listeners, please introduce yourself, Gaurav.
Okay, so my name is Gaurav Mehta, born and brought up in Delhi. I've been in the performance or affiliate marketing space for about 10 years now. It's been close to 10 years, a long time. I've worked with an affiliate network called V Commission for about 8 years in the starting of my career, majorly as an affiliate manager, media buyer, and a product manager. And for the last 2 years, post pandemic, I've been running my own agency as a solo media buyer.
And so, as you guys understand, Gaurav is a big deal. He's like one of the biggest deals. Honestly speaking, this guy has so many insights, and I'm so excited about this one. I'm really fucking excited about this one because we've already laid down. We had a bit of a rehearsal back a few hours ago, and just try to see exactly with the microphone, the setup, and everything else. But my gosh, the information that you'll hear today is just out of this world. We might need a second podcast episode for this one. But in any case, let's get started. The topic for today and for this podcast is the Indian trends, so Indian media buying trends for 2023. But I guess it's safe to say that we definitely have to, take a step back and see what happened post-pandemic. I mean, that
Yep.
also covers 2021, 2022. But Gaurav, the main question, post-pandemic wise, what has really changed when it comes to, let's say, the differences in the approaches or the trends in India? Guide us all through about it.
Okay, so a lot has changed in India post pandemic. Number one is the adaptation to the internet because India was on 4G internet for a long time, but recently India has also introduced 5G. And because everyone was stuck in India, so the whole point was to spend time on the internet. So because we had fast internet, adaptation to the net was one thing. Another thing during the pandemic was the adaptation to digital payments, which was a huge, huge step in India. Previous to that, India was majorly a cash economy. But around in 2016, 2017, there was a change in India, which was called demonetization of the currency notes for some time, because of which people were shifted to digital payments. So it has been going on since 2017, but during the pandemic, when people were not supposed to go out, was the real change when people really started transacting online. And India recorded an astonishing figure of 26 billion transactions through digital payments during that year, wherein US was only doing 1 billion. So that was a real change, was to adapt to the online digital payment system and the internet. The second one was that India saw a change in the rise of a lot of industries which were predominantly physical before that. For example, FinTech really grew, blew the roof, I would say. EdTech was one industry that really grew. There was also a rise. By the way, we had our first episode, first season of Shark Tank in India, which really inspired a lot of startups in India. And you would see a lot of emerging hyper-local marketplaces after that. During the pandemic, there was also a bit of a hiccup wherein the Indian government banned a lot of Chinese apps, like big names like TikTok, Alibaba. Um, there were several others, like PUBG was a social gaming app. India banned all of them because of security issues. So that really introduced a lot of these products being created in India. So you would have seen a lot of emergence of social media apps in India,
Right.
primarily short video apps. Before that, there were hardly any social media apps owned by Indians, but now you would see a lot of them being owned by Indians. Um, Another fact, I would say there has also been a change in the way logistics were handled in India. For example, food delivery or packages delivery that were being handled in India. That's a big change. Gaming was one vertical that really grew because Indians are social beings. That's what we call us. And since we were not able to talk to people, so family games and board games that we traditionally used to play with families sitting in a bedroom changed to the mobile phones. So
Right.
gaming was one vertical that really grew. Yeah, so there have been a lot of changes in India. One news: India is also on the verge of banning cryptocurrency. So yes, that's also a big change post pandemic. Yeah, I think things that Indians used to do traditionally on a physical level have now changed to digital. Simple things like buying insurances or paying your bills, stuff like that. Things that we used to do physically before pandemic have now moved to digital. It'll be interesting to see how it goes on in the year 2023 when everything now again moves back to the non-COVID, the protocols are gone, the COVID protocols are gone. So it'll be good to see how India adapts to it. But yes, a lot has changed in India.
I really believe that the Indian industry, the Indian affiliate marketing industry, but as a country as a whole,
Yeah.
it is a country that has been very adaptive in terms of different situations and different current let's say some events and stuff like that. Of course, the COVID also as well, right? COVID has a double-edged sword. It brought a couple of, a lot of unfortunate, let's say, situations, but of course there were also positive outcomes because of that. And
Yeah.
one of those is what you mentioned about, startups, right?
Yes.
Startups and I definitely would say that the Indian market and the Indian entrepreneurs have always been in the forefront,
Yeah.
but the pandemic already, we see a lot of startups, we see a lot of people, companies, entrepreneurs actually getting sponsorships, getting those financing in. Tell us a little bit more about what kind of fintech, what kind of fintech companies do you think up and coming when it comes to this trend?
Yes, so I would also tell you the reason why that happened.
Right.
The government of India introduced post-pandemic, since after India banned a couple of Chinese products, there was an initiative taken by the Indian government which was called as Atmanirbhar Bharat, which loosely translates to self-reliant or self-sustaining India, which means that you have to make in India or the products termed as made in India. You have to use those. That really inflicted a lot of industries starting from India, which and that feeling of patriotism that you are buying something from outside, you're paying the money is going outside and the economy is then flopping. So that's wherein people came in, chipped in, made products in India, started buying products in India. FinTech, yes, was one of them. If you see a lot of unicorns in India that became unicorns in 2021, 2022, primarily were unicorns. So there are a lot of products like PhonePe, Cred, and all these people that really made life easier for Indians, and Indians started using those. Simple things like paying your bills, like electricity bill, phone bill, or whatever, or buying insurances or investing money. Indians, as people, used to invest in physical products before, like gold or silver or ornaments. So fintech companies really changed the mindset and showed people that there are a lot of other things, other stable things, and faster growing things that you can invest in. So yes, fintech
Right.
really brought a change in India. Also, the adaptation was fast because India is a young country. A lot of people are under the age of 45 or 40 years old. So during that age, the adaptation becomes easier. And because it's a young country, they also have the spending ability because majority of the people are working class people. So, because of the spending ability, people didn't really have anything to spend during the pandemic. So, investment was one part wherein they could put their money, secure their future. Security also became an issue during the pandemic. So, all these sense of things brought in change, and I think fintech companies in India have done a very good job, and Indian customers as whole have done a very good job in adapting to all of those.
I mean, that's really really great, and obviously the whole world had to adapt throughout the pandemic. But in terms of the Indian market and how, let's say, the rise in such let's say companies or startups, I would like to stress a little bit more on what you said about like social gaming or skill based brands
Yeah,
like Rummy, for example.
yeah,
Well, people were at home, so I guess apart from short video apps like Chingari, Josh, ShareChat, and all of that, there was probably also a boom in the demand for such Rummy games, right?
yeah.
And
So
in terms I'm sorry, but in terms of the Rummy, the industry itself, we would definitely love. I would definitely love to, provide you to provide your insights on how it's going because we do have an intel, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have an intel that such Rummy related apps or games and brands are moving from the classic normal APK install for the users to the actual Google Play Store.
yes. Okay. So I would take this question as explaining you how Rummy is allowed in India, or
Right.
the term that we use, which is called skill-based game, is allowed. So Indian gaming laws head back ages back. It's like probably 100 years back. Some of them have changed, some of them have not. This is before the internet came in. It's surprising that internet laws came in before. I mean, the physical laws are applied to internet. But skill-based, Indian government defines a game or any participation as legal when majority of the stake in a game is based on your skill and not your luck. So a very famous game in India, which is cricket, has also its share of luck, wherein the game starts with a toss and it's pure luck. On you flip a coin and who bats first or bowls first, it's luck. But the major share of the game is skill. So that is how the Indian government defines it. There's no I mean, I don't know how it's decided in the court, but that's the fundamental of it. If the primary thing is skill, then the game is legal in India. And Indians have been known to playing card games for a long time now. This heads back to our ancient texts where card games were very famous. Indian love card games. And yes, Rummy is a very, very famous card game down south in India. People really like it. Indian government is okay with it. And recently, of course, they were not allowed on Google because Google had a problem with allowing anything that allows you to play for cash on the Play Store. But we saw this a
Right.
couple of years back, wherein Google is also allowing a couple of casino websites outside of India where the casinos are getting regulated. And I think it was about time where Google experimented in the biggest highest rising, biggest rising, fastest rising economy to see how the Indian users react to it and how the cultural aspects react to it, and if nothing blows out of proportion. So I think it's a pilot wherein Google is testing if everything is going right, and I think it's a bold step and a very important step in the gaming industry as well.
I really think it's a really bold step, and I
Yeah,
think it's a step in the right direction
yeah,
because if the country itself, kind of really accommodates and welcome such games and are considered not iGaming, but in a sense are skilled based kind of games, of course, this is a big opportunity, not just for 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 the country, and also for the classic players, I would say, that actually know about Rummy. Would you agree with the term that Rummy is an old man's game?
Um, See, I've played the game. It is boring, but it has its thrill to it. Anyone who understands the game, it has its thrill to it because it involves a lot of brain. You're playing with 13 cards, managing those 13 cards, making permutation and combination, and all those things that you do with cards. I consider that as boring, to be honest, because I don't find thrill in it. But I've seen a lot of people, I've observed a lot of people, my friends or family that play Rummy. It really brings the culture together. It really brings people together. People are really excited playing it, and the sheer volume of the industry tells you that people really like playing it.
And Renz, to add on to what Gaurav said, cards. I mean, Rami is again related to cards. I mean, one of the biggest
Right.
festivals in India, which is Diwali, is associated with cards. I mean, that's during Diwali. You can see a lot of family. I mean, families sit together and they play cards. So it's actually been a part of the DNA of, I think, most of the Indians.
And I definitely would agree with that. And of course, both of you know this for a fact more than I do. But I really think that this is a great opportunity to expand the reach. And coming from that place of familiarity with like more and more people actually getting to know about this game and this industry as a whole, definitely provides the country itself great opportunities to expand. Google Play Store, if they agree on like onboarding and like approving all of these apps, then we must be doing something right. There must be opportunity there. I mean, Google is not knocking on your door without them, basically earning some really huge amount of revenues from this. So this is going to be very exciting. Are you expecting Rummy as a vertical itself, I would say the gaming vertical, to expand in India? And also, a second question as a note: how about the actual iGaming industry in India? What are the laws currently over there?
Yeah. So I definitely see Rummy growing in India, especially after one of the biggest companies giving it a door and a way to go ahead. Because when you play on APKs, you always get a warning message that it might be affected or user as now Indians are also getting to know about the privacy issues and the security issues with the apps. But if Google has approved it, the user is free to download it and play. So that has really given a good path to the industry, wherein you might see an increase. And obviously, since it's being there on Google, the advertising becomes easier. So
Right.
it'll give an edge to the advertisers as well to penetrate deeper into the industry and not just people who have been traditionally playing Rummy. And when it comes to iGaming, so iGaming laws are still not very clear in India, but it falls under gray area, but it's still not legal. I've observed that a lot of European and US brands have invested in India, heavily invested in India over the 5 years in the iGaming space. As a matter of fact, the biggest show in India was sponsored by an iGaming brand this year. But they've been falling under the gray area. However, Indian government is now putting a hammer to it to some extent, wherein the Play Stores, which they were able to arrange somehow, the payment gateways and all, are getting blocked. There are a lot of issues with the Indian government because these are European brands or US brands, and first of all, the iGaming industry is not allowed in India. They are able to penetrate it to some extent, but the Indian government has now started to intervene once they saw maybe it was falling under the radar now. So the Indian government has really started to come in. However, I don't really see it becoming regularized very soon because there are a lot of cultural and regional aspects associated with that as well. On a physical note, yes, people do that. Online, yes, people have been doing it because somehow it was not under the radar. The revenues were really low, but as it's getting to blow, it's getting noticed and they're getting a hammer now.
And with all that attention, don't you think that it makes sense for the government or even state by state laws to actually moderate? I mean, of course, it needs moderation. It needs some regulation, right? I mean, you for a fact do see the trend worldwide. I mean, obviously, with regulated countries that actually allow, iGaming, online iGaming, we've seen that with the World Cup, the recent World Cup, right? We were expecting a huge boom of traffic here at PropellerAds. To be honest with you, we were expecting a huge boom of traffic for the games in this sense, and of course, on our side, we are super strict and policy-wise, we definitely only work with regulated companies. But coming from your side and also the trends worldwide, do you feel that 2023 would bring in some fruitful changes for the iGaming industry in India?
Absolutely cold no to that. I don't think there's going to be an acceptance with iGaming because if you consider West, as per what I've known, there can be checks to how much a player is spending and if he's not spending out of his pocket. I
Right.
know that that used to happen in UK, wherein every user would have a cap according to probably their income or the balance. I'm not very sure about it, but there are caps, and the gaming regulations are really strict from users' perspective. So the user protection is really strong. However, you cannot do that in India because India, as I told you, was a cash economy, has been a cash economy for a long time. There are a lot of people that don't even report their income to the government. So there's no way that the government can put in a check on how much a user is spending and if he's not spending out of his pocket, because once a lot of people from a certain section start spending out of their pocket, that becomes an issue for the government, because that is where maybe the protests are held or the complaints are raised in the consumer court, and that becomes a burden for the government itself. So yes, the revenues, if it's regulated, would be very high. It would really impact the economy. It would really help the government in a good way. But the cultural aspects are way bigger than that. Wherein I don't think the people culturally are ready to accept the fact that iGaming will be regulated in India.
And we see that. I get what you're saying in terms of the consumer behavior or the player behavior in a sense. I actually think that the government with these actions and with these regulations, right, and not being open to just basically knock on that door, it provides protection, if I would say, to the Indian, population as a whole, because we see that with people. I mean, everybody, not just in India, but all around the world, right? It is addictive
Yes.
to play a game, not an iGaming game, but even a game on your phone, right? Even with utilities or kind of social games, like on Android and iOS devices. Things can get quite messy and addictive in that sense. So I definitely get that. But coming back to the rummy field, that also provides quite a huge demand in the country itself. And speaking of behavior, speaking of user behavior, I want to take you now to a bit more precise topic, which is the affiliate marketing, right? What are the differences? Because you mentioned a bit more of you touched base a little bit on the cultural side of things between the East, the West, and all that. And what do you think are the main differences of India as a country in terms of affiliate marketing and other regions, Europe, Latin America, USA, even North America? What are the main differences, Gaurav?
I think from affiliate marketing perspective, the difference is sheer volume and diversity, and the cultural changes, cultural diversity in India. India, we are 1.4 billion people, and half of the people have access to internet right now. So that practically means that 700 people have access to internet. 700 million people have access to internet. And a fun fact here is that the population of USA that you mentioned is only 300 million. So twice the population of USA is in India that is using the internet. So the difference is sheer volume and the way it is approached. And I think a very key important step in India is to go hyper local, to do hyper local targeting. rather than just giving it to the masses like you do it in West. You cannot really expect a brand to just come in and go bonkers and just run campaigns or run ads all across the country. You have to really choose your audience. You have to go hyper local. And I think yes, that's one difference. And I also think that the way at least affiliate marketers approach the Indian region, I don't think that is right because there's a mindset that India is cheap traffic, high conversions, and low lifetime value of a user. I don't agree to it much because if I give you an example of affiliate marketing itself, dating is considered to be a very old vertical in the industry. It's going on for decades now, but no one has really touched India. No one has been able to successfully penetrate into India, and that has been the psychological thing with the affiliate marketers that we don't want to run dating campaigns in India. But just to give you, a bit of a shocking news, that Tinder is the number two revenue generating. India is the number two revenue generating country for Tinder. Bumble has been showing 100% year on year growth in India. So dating definitely works. It all depends on how you approach the users. You cannot really have funnels or UX and UI of your website that used to work for US and make it work for India as well. So you really have to hyperlocal. You have to do hyperlocal targeting, and you also have to accept the fact that India is culturally a different country, and you have to approach it in that way.
Right, right. Could you tell us a bit more about the hyper localization? So, uh, could you give us a more specific example of, let's say, Tinder? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's astounding. It's astounding to really comprehend the fact that Tinder is, number two revenue generator in India. Correct me, guys, if I'm wrong, but isn't India still a conservative country?
Yeah, so Tinder and Bumble, I believe this for a fact that Tinder works as a hookup app in the West. Uh, you,
Well,
uh,
frankly, yes, yes,
yes,
it is.
yeah.
They are, yeah,
India,
absolutely.
I don't think in India, to a lot of extent, it is considered as a hookup app. It is still considered as casual dating, where you would go on a first date and you are, if I can use the term, you are not expecting to be DTF is what the modern guys use the term. So that's I don't think you can expect that in India. So what Tinder and Bumble has have done is they have not entered the industry as a hookup app. They have entered the industry as casual dating. They have probably filters there wherein you cannot just post that kind of content that you post outside. So
Right.
there has to be an acceptance, and I think they've entered that space as that way. Another thing, Tinder didn't, and a lot of dating sites that what they do in India is they enter as a paid application, wherein you would be on the app for a minute or so, and then you have to pay to chat to someone.
Right.
What Tinder has done is Tinder has adapted to India and have entered as a freemium app, wherein I don't know how it works again outside, but at least in India, you can use Tinder forever as a free application, and if you want to use certain kind of features, you have to pay for it. So that's where the funnel comes in. You can use it for however long, you can get addicted to it, you can get used to it, but we will give you certain highlights. We'll show you something, but we'll not let you enter it. If you want to, say for example, if you want to, I don't even know what paid things do in Tinder, but I'm sure there are things like Super Like or Boost. For all of that, you have to pay. So they entered India as a freemium app. It is known that Indians don't really spend their money upfront without seeing the product, and we love discounts. So if you open Tinder, you would see discounts every time. That if you buy it for 3 months, you would get X percentage of discount. If you buy it for a year, you would get X percentage of discount. We love discounts. We want to see the product, and that is how they've entered the market as a freemium product rather than a paid product.
Oh,
Gotcha. Well,
I completely agree with Gaurav on this particular point, and yeah, I mean both the apps, I mean, Tinder as well as Bumble are doing pretty well in the Indian market. Gaurav, I mean we spoke about a lot of interesting things. I mean we spoke about the Prime Minister's Atmanirbhar initiative, which led to the exit of giants like your TikTok or
Yeah,
PUBG. I mean, globally, I mean, these people are giants. I
yeah,
mean, which also, like this also gave way to, much more emerging clients like your ShareChat. I mean, you have your Moj. I mean, you have Indian gaming clients, like who, which, like who actually replaced PUBG coming in. Having said that, I mean, what do you think, like are the new verticals which are fresh? I mean, which are really fresh, which are new, which are emerging, and which are actually unusual, and you think is actually the right fit in the affiliate marketing space? Anything new?
cool.
Gaurav,
So,
before you answer that, Gaurav, I just
yeah,
have a question for our female audience. Because you touch base with the Tinder and the dating, are you on Tinder, man?
I've tried Bumble.
Rohit, that
That's
question was for ladies.
yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
Going
But good
back
to
to the
know.
question, Gaurav.
Okay, yes. As you mentioned that there has been a rise in the social media apps which are owned by
Right.
Indians. There has been an increase in gaming. There has also been a significant increase in the hyperlocal D2C market, e-commerce market. So you would see a lot of pet stores now opening to the extent that I've seen services wherein they would bring a van to your doorstep, groom your pet, and they would go back. So you just book an appointment. You don't have to take your pet to the vet or wherever you take the take the pet. There are a lot of verticals in e-com space itself after the pandemic, which are wearable healthcare products. Everyone has a wearable now. It's either a watch or a patch or something or the other. I've seen that vertical really growing. Except for and in e-commerce itself, I think social media has brought in a change wherein people really want to look beautiful and they want to have filters on their face all the time. So I think beauty is one product, or cosmetics is one product, or Nutra as a whole. You can say beauty, slimming, and all that stuff, or looking taller. These industries have really grown in India. Except for e-commerce space, I think, as I mentioned, FinTech has really grown during the pandemic because the kids were not able to go to school. EdTech has really grown. EdTech has grown to an extent that an Indian company was sponsoring the FIFA World Cup,
Right.
which is also
That's
sponsoring.
huge.
That's huge. Which is also sponsoring the Indian cricket team. I think they're sponsoring the jersey, but I'm not sure if they're sponsoring the team as a whole or the board as a whole. But EdTech, that shows the amount of money these guys are making and the amount of scale that these guys are doing. Except for that, yes, social media apps have really I- blown out of proportion. I think it will be interesting to see how they monetize now. But there are a lot of users. Um Yes, I think these are the industries that are really grown, and there's one industry that is really growing is the fulfillment services, because India again is a huge country. It's the houses are not very organized. Since the hyperlocal market is growing, there also again introduces the need for fulfillment because people are now expecting their orders to be delivered in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. If you can order a bag of chips or a bottle of Pepsi, and you'd get it at your doorsteps in 10 minutes. So it's that competitive now, and logistics companies, fulfillment companies have really grown, especially during the times of pandemic. I think they've done a really good job, and I think it's time that they will grow, and more industries that were physical will now start to come online if fulfillment services are done properly. So I think these are the industries that have really grown in India. I would emphasize that especially I'm a big fan of fintech services in India, and I think they've really done a good job. One thing that has really grown is also insurances in India. Rohit and I were having a chat earlier that insurance earlier was a cost to the people, but
It was
now
considered as a
it was
cost.
considered, yeah, as a cost. But now I think people have started to realize that it is really important
And it's a
to
necessity.
it as a
It's
necessity.
an
Yeah.
and that and this I think Gaurav, I agree with you. And Renz, I mean, this is something, which actually developed, the post-pandemic. Because, the kind of money that every, like individuals and family had to spend during the
Right,
pandemic. I
right.
mean, employment, loss of job, getting infected, your medical expenses. That's when people started realizing the importance of, insurance. So I think that's one vertical, which is actually really grown, post the pandemic, and I completely agree with Gaurav on that.
And now I think not just insurance. I also think that loan providers, companies are also have also been seeing quite a huge boost because of the pandemic and also
Yes.
post-pandemic. What do you guys think?
Absolutely, Renz. I mean, when we talk about, I mean, fintech as a whole. I mean, Gaurav, in fact, covered about fintech. Gaurav, like when he started the conversation on fintech, he started with the traditional banking. I mean, investment in gold, investment on traditional investments, that people were doing.
Right.
But what the change the fintech as an industry is bought towards us, giving people opportunity with the newer formats of investment, mutual funds. I mean, it can be related to keeping in mind even the traditional format. Initially, like I had to go to a jewelry and buy gold. Right now, the fintech has enabled the customers to invest in gold. Uh, you know,
Virtually.
online and digital, virtual gold, which when he gets his free time, he can go and convert it into real gold. So the options of what it has done is it has made things much more simple for the end user, in terms of the investment, in terms of managing his investment. It made it much more simpler. And I think that's one great change, that the fintech industry is bought of God. Now getting a loan. We were talking about loan. I mean, you can go get a loan as low as like $200, and that goes up to how much ever you want. So you have microfinance. So you have various opportunities and various options within the fintech and the loan industry. And there are a lot of companies. I mean, it's not one. There are a lot of micro finance companies. There are bigger finance companies, bigger loan providers, all in this entire space.
I would like
And
to
of
add
course,
one
these
point here.
companies. Yeah, go ahead.
I think when we talk about loans, yes, loans from the banks has been there. People have been doing it uh, digitally or physically. It has been there. But mini loans is an interesting topic in the entire southeast of Asia. I think not only in India.
Yeah, absolutely.
Buying loans at very low interest and a very low value of interest. It's interesting, but I'm not really sure how regulated it is again in India at this point in time because this loan is not coming from regulated or approved companies by the government. How legal is it is it'll be interesting to see again in 2023 in the coming years when probably it becomes a bigger industry. But right now, I think it is coming from fintech companies, which I believe, to the best of my knowledge, are not regulated to give out loans. So many loans in India.
2019, Gaurav, I think 2019, by end of 2019, there were a lot of, very unregulated providers giving small amount. I mean, the loan value is not huge. I mean, it's small amount,
Yeah.
ranging from $50 to, like say $200. A lot of companies was in fact banned by the RBI. I mean, a lot of companies. But I think RBI's borders regulations. I need to again cross check on that.
Yeah.
And the current companies which are there, I think they are already they've got approval from RBI and they've been running it. So you have the short term, the 15 days
Yeah.
credit. I mean credit lines. I mean you can talk
Oh
about
yes.
credit line companies. So you have a lot of players in that. I think the regulation has already been brought about by the RBI. I think we need to again cross check on it. But yeah, most of the registered companies have already been deregistered, and RBI has actually bought in a ban amongst them.
Yeah.
And even these companies, right? I mean, they do require. I mean, to disperse whatever is the loan amount, they do require the credit check, which is a basic norm in India. I mean, you have three agencies providing the credit check. I mean, they do the credit check as well. So I
Yes.
think that's
And
something which is sorted out. But again, like it's something that we know we'll have to, look into
I think
as
if
well.
I also think logically, because a lot of these fintech companies are now public listed companies and they do have an option of mini loans. There's a huge possibility that RBI might have regulated it. But I was just talking about mini loans as an industry as a whole, if it's regulated or not. So since these public companies are doing it, I think there can also be a difference wherein giving small credit. Actually, I'm not sure. There needs to be a check when it comes to this. But I come from a perspective that many loans are still gray in India and are not completely white and regulated. But yes, we'll probably go back and check. And wherever this goes, we'll post this in the comments, maybe.
I think being a huge country, of course, regulations must be in place. It's definitely not going to be a wild west, and I think that's what the Indian government is trying to pursue. And also in terms of essentially what you mentioned also yourself with cryptocurrencies, right? Because of that regulation, and of course we're also seeing that with other countries as well. Having those regulations, but. There has been a rise with cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency apps, exchanges, and all that. With the regulations, do you think that there will be a steep decline of the demand?
So, if we talk about only India, I think India as a whole is very keen on banning cryptocurrency because if they had
Right.
to regulate it, they would have done that. And India has taken a next step wherein they've also they just started to introduce something called as digital rupee, which I don't think has been introduced as of now, but I think it's going to be the Indian version of cryptocurrency. I'm still not
Right.
sure. It's virtual money. I'm still not sure how it's going to behave or how it works. But from the little that I've read, I think it's an Indian version of cryptocurrency. We've been seeing for months now that the Indian government is trying to press cryptocurrency and trying to maybe ban it. The problems have been there for people who've been investing in crypto. The rules are not clear. People are maybe not able to invest or withdraw or whatever that case is. So Indian government has not really been keen on regulating crypto. But since digital rupee has been introduced now, I think it's an interesting step towards Indian version of cryptocurrency. And also, digital
Right.
rupee will also solve the problem that Indian people face when they're doing cross-border transaction. So I'm very sure that there'll be a tie-up with multiple countries wherein digital rupee will be the currency that will be used. So it's kind of an Indian way of using crypto.
Well, that will be a game changer, I think.
Yes, and since it will also be regulated by India and governed by India, which
Right.
crypto was not, I think it will be a game changer for the government and maybe for the users as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Renz,
Well, yeah.
in fact, the digital rupee, right? I mean, it can be used even in the smallest of the kirana shop, wherein you actually don't need your bank to be connected to make the payment. It can be directly, digitally received and digitally given as well. So that makes transaction also much more simpler. And this is something which, as Gaurav said, the government is bringing about.
Oh no, Rohit, I think you're confused here. I'm not talking about digital payments. Rupee will remain rupee. So it's either physical cash or virtual cash, whatever you do. Rupee is rupee, but there's something called as digital rupee that is being introduced. Again, we'll have to do more reading, and once it comes into place in India, we'll know more about it once it's being used. But I think recently, not even a month back, the government has announced digital rupee. So even I cannot go in lengths talking about it because I cannot give more information than I know, or I don't want to give any false information. But that is something which I believe is the crypto version of India, which will be used cross border to avoid those. Maybe the transaction fees that were being charged by intermediary banks or so. So that will be a game changer wherein the intermediary banks will not be involved, which means that cross-border transaction and the fees becomes lower and the value of the product becomes cheaper. So I think that's what the government is trying to do.
Right. I mean, everything has to be regulated at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think this will just, at the end of the tunnel, it will just be, beneficial for the country itself as a whole.